The world of martial arts had become nothing more than a fairy tale. Jeonglip says that nobody takes it seriously anymore. The man driving says that it's better that way. People are uncomfortable with the idea that warriors with special superpowers could be hiding among them. Jeonglip says that the problem is that they have to go through all this trouble just because the people feel uncomfortable. The driver comments that he doesn't seem too happy with his promotion to section chief. The man says he's not happy because the last section chief died on the job. He scrolls through pictures on his tablet and asks what kind of high schooler becomes a Murim warrior. Then, the driver asks him if he's referring to the kid that they're going to meet. The man says yes, and that most high schoolers have basic common sense by that age, and no one in their right mind would choose to be a Murim warrior. Meanwhile, Hage Kang stands on the ledge of the rooftop of his school building. Just as he is about to take the step to jump, a voice behind him asks him if he is gonna jump. Shocked, he looks sideways and sees a boy, Seon Lee, standing. He wonders how long he's been there but decides that it doesn't matter and turns back to do what he came here for. He had already written his suicide note, so he closes his eyes and gets ready to jump when Seon says that he wouldn't do it if he were him. When Hage turns to look at him, he's standing much closer to him than before. It seems unbelievable to Hage as he didn't even hear him move. He sees the name tag on his shirt and realizes that he's a second-year student. Seon says that people see their life flash before they die. All the good times and bad times mixed together in one brief moment. But what people regret most in that moment is their decision to end their life. Hage asks him how he would know because it's not like he's ever committed suicide before. Hage then cries as he says that this isn't something he wanted to do. He really tried to live, but Kim keeps making his life a hell. Hage lifts up his shirt to show him bruises that had given him just because he didn't get him the right snack from the cafeteria. He goes on about how he made him do things for him, took his money and slapped him, spit on him and pulled down his pants in front of everyone. And the worst part is that everyone else treats him like shit even though is the one in the wrong. Hage had even tried asking his teacher for help, but all she did was tell him to stop causing trouble at school and learn to get along with other students. With tears running down his face, Hage says that if the world is this messed up, he'd rather not be in it. Seon says that if that's how he feels, then he would help him and gives him a shove. As Hage falls down, he can't believe that he has been pushed. He continues to scream and cry as he falls while seeing good memories from his childhood. Then he also sees memories of Yoonho and the trouble he put him through. Hage keeps thinking that he could have hit Yoonho at least one time for what he did to him. Everything goes dark, and when he wakes up, Hage is on a bed in the nurse's room. Surprised, he wonders how he ended up here and if that entire thing was a dream. Yoonho shows up and hits him again. He takes him outside and throws a notebook at him, saying that he read his suicide note. Then, he mocks him by saying that it was so touching that it made him cry. Then he hits Hage for making him sound like a psycho. As he keeps hitting him, Yoonho asks how he ended up in the nurse's office if he went to kill himself. Then he grabs him by his hair and punches him. Hage regrets trying to killing himself while Yoonho continues to smack him. He gathers the strength to defend himself and not have any regrets and tries to punch Yoonho right in the face. But Hage misses his aim. Yoonho calls him weak and asks him to fight him. Courageously, Hage tells him that he won't just stand and take his hits. Hage prepares himself mentally to fight when he hears a voice telling him that he is brave. Turning around, he sees that it's the same senior, Seon, sitting on the wall. Yoonho asks him to leave and says that if he wanted to join the fight, he would call Jinho, the top dog of the second year, as well. Seon gets down and says that he would help since he's already here. He goes up to Hage, fixes his posture and teaches him the best way to fight. When Hage is about to hit Yoonho, Seon gives Hage's arm a tiny push, making him punch Yoonho in the face with extreme force. Yoonho flies back and falls flat on his face. His friends are now angry and close in on Hage when Seon gives him another poke, making Hage punch them both in the jaw. The two bullies are on the ground and Seon comments how strong Hage is and says that he doesn't give to be a pushover anymore. Hage then gets on his knees and thanks Seon for helping him and begs him to teach him how to be as strong as him. Jeonglip arrives to meet the student, Seon Lee, a regular kid who became a legend in the martial arts world. Hage is still on his knees waiting for a reply. Seon says that he also begged someone one time, but all he got from him was despair, frustration, and an enemy that he has to crush. Saying this, he walks away. Jeonglip hands his business card to Seon and introduces himself to him. When asked why he came to see him, Jeonglip asks Seon if he knows about Guman Ryong, the Nine Arts Dragon. Then Jeonglip says that it might be a difficult question for him to answer as his master is known as the greatest disaster in the world of martial arts. Jeonglip continues to talk about how Ryong has become the head of the terrorist group known as the Shadow Warriors. They've become bolder ever since he became their leader, and now they're expanding their influence across state borders. And soon, they might take over the world. Seon asks him what he wants from him. Jeonglip says that he wants his caution and cooperation. He starts to tell him that if he knew anything about Ryong, but is cut off mid-sentence when the drink in his hand explodes and spills as Seon had thrown his business card, which sliced the can. Seon says that Ryong is nothing more than an enemy to him and walks away. The two men discuss their first impression of Seon. Jeonglip says that he expected him to be an amateur, but he's feistier than he imagined and says that he wants to see him take a beating. In his classroom, Hage's desk is a mess. As he looks at it, Hage thinks that this is normal life for him, but after that experience of coming back to life, he doesn't feel threatened by them. He thinks that maybe they all pretended to notice anything because they were scared Yoonho might go after them. His thoughts are interrupted by Yoonho, who storms into the classroom and punches him. He keeps hitting Hage, asking what was it that he did to him earlier. The class rep, Ayin, tries to tell Yoonho to please stop as lunchtime is almost over. Yoonho is furious over her interruption and turns his focus to her. He tells her that his father is the top lawyer at Kim & Park, the best law firm in Korea, so nothing would happen to him even if he made trouble at school. He then asks her if he should show her what happens when he causes trouble. He gets closer to her when Hage shouts out his name and tells him that he's supposed to be fighting him. Though he's hurt and injured, Hage gets up to fight him while trembling, and he remembered how Yoonho started bullying him. It was because Hage had stood up for someone else being bullied by Yoonho. Yoonho grabs a desk and heads towards Hage, when suddenly, the phone buzzes with a call from Jinho. Yoonho says he would call him back, but his friend insists that he take the call now. Yoonho angrily drops the desk and answers the call. Jinho yells at him to keep his hands off Hage. The guys wonder how Jinho knows who Hage is. Jinho is the top dog in second year, so Hage wonders why he would help him and thinks that maybe Seon was behind this. Ayin goes up to Hage to check on him and gives him a handkerchief to clean himself up. Hage then goes to Seon's class to find him. His classmates say that Seon hasn't been in class for a while, and even their teachers don't know where he is. Hage walks out of the class, thinking that maybe he's a ghost. But it's not possible since Yoonho and his friends saw him too. Suddenly, a burly man grabs Hage and leads him out to ask him something, as he had overheard Hage asking the students about Seon. But a woman who looks too young to be a teacher but doesn't look like a student asks Hage if she can talk to him. The man who brought him out tells her to mind her own business as they're just having a chat. She says that it looks like tough guys are surrounding an injured student, and immediately makes a call telling someone to come quickly as there are suspicious people here. They rush to grab her phone, but she sends them all falling to the ground. The man immediately recognizes her skill and says that she is a Murim warrior. The man then asks her if she's in a martial arts sect linked to the school, and if she's Master Sira Kang. She replies that since everyone knows who she is, they should just go talk in private. She asks them to follow her and turns her back towards them. The man reaches inside his pocket for something and hurls it at her, but she is fast enough to block it with her purse. When it explodes, the girl is distracted and the man runs away with Hage. Sira realizes it's Mahon incense, which is a type of anesthetic. She calls the person again and informs them that the intruders took Hage Kang away. She also asks the person to gather more people and search the whole school. Now that the man has gotten Hage alone, he questions him about Seon Lee. Hage asks him why he wants to know about Seon. The man says that it's none of his business. Hage replies that it's not fair for him to expect to tell him anything when he won't say a word. The man comments that he thought Hage was a coward, but he's actually got some guts. He then punches the wall next to Hage's face and says that guts will get him killed. Hage cleverly replies that if he killed him, he wouldn't be able to find out what he knows. Hage himself cannot believe how calm enough he feels to talk back to the man. So they start telling him about why they're looking for Seon. Lately, the Seonu clan has been completely closed off, living like hermits. So they're curious to know what's going on when the head of the clan makes a move. Hage has no idea what they're talking about and asks them to explain further. The man says that Seon is a very important guy in the Murim, which is why they're looking for him. Hage then asks him what the Murim is. He says that the Murim is a society with different values from normal people. Hage continues to ask another question, but he's cut off by being shoved against the wall. The man asks him where Seon is, but Seon himself shows up behind them and asks why they're looking for him. They don't answer and instead nervously move around. Seon warns them not to run away. The group decide to do so anyway, and the next moment, They all fly up high in the sky. As they fall, Seon kick strikes them. They come crashing down and fall to the ground. When they get up, they ask Seon what they did wrong. Seon says that they used a hidden weapon on the master of a clan, blackmailed and threatened a civilian, and revealed confidential information about the Muram. He then asks Hage to follow him. Hage asks Seon if he has any superpowers or if he is a Muram warrior too. Seon tells him to stop talking about him or it would get himself killed. Hage replies that he doesn't care because he saved his life. Hage talks about how he was miserable before. He thought everyone in his world hated him, which made him depressed, and that's the reason he went to the roof. But when he awoke from death, the world to him looked completely different from before. He could see that not everyone was his enemy. Even the class rep stood up against Yoonho for him. That was when he realized that Yoonho bullied him so much that it warped his sense of reality. And that's why he's so grateful to Seon for making him realize that. Seon then tells him to go to class and meets up with Sira. He asks her how she's feeling. She says that she's fine as it was just a temporary stun. Seon says that the intruders seem to be working for the Muram Special Affairs Bureau, and then apologizes to her, saying that it's all his fault. She tells him there's no need to apologize and that it's her fault for letting those intruders break into the school. She then says that he didn't need to get involved in this. To this, Seon asks her if it bothers her that he helped Hage. She tells him that the thing that bothers her is that she is meeting with Dr. Demon Hand in secret. When they meet up, Dr. Demon Hand asks her how the head of the Seonu clan is. Sira says that he is recovering. She then tells him that it may not be a good time for him to undergo Kai expansion. The doctor, Sangshik-ju, asks her if she's worried that he might experience Kai deviation, which is a negative physiological reaction resulting from improper practice of Kai. They continue to talk about how the head's been feeling lost for some time now, and that most people in similar situations would be shattered, but the head of Seonu clan is different. He was a force of nature even before he began Kai expansion. Sangshik asks her to forget about logic and trust him as he is the head physician at the Hongin clinic. Suddenly, a door swings open and standing there is Seon. He welcomes Sangshik, who simply pats him on the shoulder and says that was remarkable, and then tells them that they shall continue this madness and walks inside. Back in school, Hage is in class while the students around him chatter and get ready to leave class. However, Yoonho and his friends simply get up and leave without bothering Hage for the first time. Hage notices that they've been really quiet ever since they talked to Jinho. He thinks that anyone who is like Seon must be really intimidating and wonders if he would meet Seon again. Then, he stumbles upon Yoonho, who asks if he really thought he was gonna just leave. Back at Sangshik's clinic, Sira is surprised at how many needles he's used. The doctor says that it's completely normal. Sira tells him that if she didn't know he was Muram's top physician, she wouldn't think this was an actual treatment. And Sangshik says that if Muram warriors found out what was going on here, they would be even more shocked than Sira. Sitting there on the floor with all the needles on him is Seon. Yoonho beats up Hage until he's on the ground, completely hurt. One of his friends reminds him that Jinho asked not to bother Hage. Yoonho says he doesn't care and continues to beat Hage to a pulp. Before he can do further damage to him, his friends grab a hold of him and pull him away and tell him not to hit him. Yoonho doesn't want to listen to them. Hage thinks how Yoonho won't change himself despite what Jinho told him, so he decides that he himself is gonna be the one that changes and throws a punch at Yoonho. Hage is tired of being bullied and wants to use his second chance at life wisely. At the clinic, Sangshik is angrily talking about Gumanryong being a traitor to his disciples and then apologizes for being carried away. Seon is telling Sangshik about what the Muram Special Affairs Bureau has been up to. Sangshik replies that they're doing this purely because Seon is a disciple of Gumanryong and asks Seon to stay away from him as Gumanryong is not human like them. Suddenly, Seon looks away. Sira calls out his name and Seon apologizes and says that the energy flow he felt is bothering him. Sangshik replies that he doesn't feel anything. Sira then tells the doctor that Seon has recently started sensing and hearing things that the rest of them can't. She explains that earlier that day, he sensed the Kai of a student who was about to jump off the roof of the school. Sangshik wonders if it's related to Kai expansion. Still feeling disturbed by what he felt, Seon asks the doctor to come with him for a minute. He leads the way and brings them to the school where Hage lays unconscious after he was beat up by Yoonho. Sangshik-ju cannot believe that Seon was able to sense this energy from all the way over there. He thinks to himself that Seon is far beyond what he imagined. Sira calls an ambulance for Hage while Seon looks distraught. She tries to tell Seon that what happened here was between civilians and that he just met the kid that day. Seon tells her that he understands the situation Hage is in and that he can't turn his back on him. Suddenly, Hage is awake and with a smile on his face, tells Seon that he didn't just stand there and take hits this time and that he actually hit you. After saying this, he passes out. When Hage wakes up, he is at the hospital. Seon is sitting by his side, watching over him. He tries to ask him what he's doing here. Seon simply tells him not to move as he's just been bandaged him up. Hage then asks him if he is a stalker since he always seems to know where he is. Seon doesn't answer him and asks if he still wants to get stronger. Hage can't believe that he's offering to help him. Seon tells him to keep it a secret between them. Hage says that he would do anything to be as strong as him. Seon throws a phone at him and asks him to contact him with it from now on. He also tells him that he's written down basic exercises that he has to do each day starting tomorrow. Hage is shocked at how he can start in his condition. Seon reminds Hage that he said he would do anything to be strong. So, Hage agrees and Seon assures him that he would get stronger as long as he did what he said. And then he asks Hage to call his parents as they would be worried about him. Hage says that it's only him and his mom at home and that she works late and doesn't even know if he's in his room most of the time. Seon still insists that he calls and leaves. Hage opens up the list that Seon has typed out for him. He is shocked at the amount of exercises he's required to do on a single day. Hage thinks that Seon is kidding as the list of exercises seem impossible to do. Hage thinks about his day felt surreal and wonders if it was just a dream. The next morning, Hage looks at himself in the mirror and is shocked to see no bruises on his face. All the wounds from the night before seem to have disappeared. He then says to himself that the room looks expensive and must cost a fortune. Sira walks in and tells him that he doesn't need to worry about that and holding his chin, says that Dr. Demon Hand sure does good work. Hage doesn't know what she's talking about so she tells him to chat with her. Sira tells her that his bullying in school would be taken care of and also that a special teacher would be assigned to his class to make sure this bullying never happens again. She even says that a scholarship would be provided to him each semester. Hage immediately says no and declines the offer. Sira is surprised at his answer. Hage says that she would ask him to stay away from Seon in exchange for all those benefits. He tells her that he knows she doesn't like to see him with Seon, so she's trying to keep him away from Seon. Then she grabs him by collar and slams him to the bed and pins him down, and tells him to think carefully before he answers as it might be his last chance. Hage replies that by seeing how much she wants to keep him away from Seon, it makes him want to accept her offer even less. She chokes him and says that she isn't joking and says that if she kept doing it, he would soon be dead. Hage tells her that he doesn't care because if it wasn't for Seon, he'd already be dead, and then says that he won't let anyone bully him into doing what they want anymore. Upon hearing this, she lets go of him and says that she understands why Seon is concerned about him. She then hands him a box of supplements and a gym membership card and then says that Seon is an extremely important person in the Miram world and if Hage ever put him in danger, she would do a lot more than just threaten him. On his way to school, Hage looks at the list on the phone Seon gave him and thinks about how he needs to exercise but doesn't know where to start. Suddenly, the phone rings and Seon is on the other end of the line. He checks up on Hage to see how he is doing and then asks him to exercise. Hage tells Seon that he can barely do 1 push-up whereas the list asks him to do 100. Seon tells him to just keep going until he reaches the target. Hage then asks him if it's a good idea to push himself like that. Seon tells him to take 1 supplement after working out each day, and then he would be fine. Then he tells Hage that if he isn't able to do the whole list in 1 day, within the next 2 weeks, they would never see each other again and hangs up. Hage thinks that it seems impossible but decides to give it a try regardless. He goes to the gym and sees muscular men doing their daily workout. Feeling insecure and intimidated, Hage tiptoes around to find a quiet corner to work out at. He struggles to do push-ups and is asked by a man if it's his first time working out as he's been trying to do push-ups for an hour. Trembling, he says that he has to do 200 today. The man advises him to just stretch and not push himself as it's his first day. Hage then tells him that it was his teacher who asked him to do this. The man wonders what kind of ridiculous trainer would ask someone to do such a thing. After completing his workout, Hage is on his bed, thinking how brutal that workout was. He tried his hardest but wasn't able to complete even a quarter of the list. He wonders if he should just give up as it seems impossible to get everything done within 2 weeks. He receives a message from Seon asking if he finished his workout for the day. Hage lets him know that he barely did anything on the list. Seon replies that it's normal, asks him to try the next day and reminds him to take the supplements. Hage takes them out and notes how fancy they look. They smell like herbal medicine and Hage thinks if it's safe to take. As soon as he puts it in his mouth, it melts, taking Hage by surprise. Hage then gets up to go wash up but falls back on his bed. When he gets up, it's past 10 o'clock. He wonders how he slept in so late and goes to wash up. In the bathroom mirror, he notices that he looks stronger than he did yesterday but then brushes it off as it's impossible to build muscle in just a day. Later that day at the gym, Paige is doing his push-ups while the men who saw him the previous night wonder how he's still able to work out. 2 weeks later, the men continue to note Paige's improvement. They can't believe how muscular he's gotten in less than a month. Puffing and panting, Paige sinks to the floor. He is exhausted yet happy that he was able to finish the whole list in one day. He happily texts Seon and lets him know this. Seon congratulates him and asks him to meet him at Gangnam Station as he has a present for him. Before he can take the bus to Gangnam, he hears a woman's voice. Paige looks at her and thinks that she looks like a celebrity. He wonders who she's talking to. She tells him that she was talking to him, leaving Paige in a state of surprise. Paige stares at the girl, trying to figure out why she's talking to him. She asks him if he knows Seon and then replies to her own question by saying that she knows that Paige knows Seon and tells him to not even think of lying to her. Immediately, Paige points out to something behind her. She turns around to see a cat and thinks how cute it is. While she's distracted, Paige makes a run for it and boards his bus. She calls him a brat and leaps onto the bus. Inside the bus, Paige is relieved that the bus arrived on time. He thinks to himself that maybe he didn't have to run away at all as she seemed like a Murim warrior too. As he's thinking this, the girl shows up behind him. Paige then wonders what a Murim warrior is and tries to look it up online. He's tried to read about them a few times but never been able to understand who they are. Suddenly, his phone is snatched out from his hands by the girl. Paige freaks out as he never saw her getting on the bus. Paige's phone pings with a message from Seon. He's sent Paige an address and asked him to meet him there. Now that she knows where Seon is, she asks Paige if she can borrow the phone for a bit, and gets off at a stop. Paige follows her, asking her to give him back his phone. The girl refuses, so Paige says that if she didn't give it back to him, he'd just take it away from her. She challenges him to go ahead and try. Paige is fuming, thinking that he may be weak but he's still a guy. And also, he's been working out lately. As he goes to take the phone from her, he thinks how he has no idea what a Murim warrior is but at least he won't lose to a girl. The next moment, the girl grabs his arm, cracks it and locks it behind his back, leaving him in pain. She then lets go off him thinking how strange it is that he's just an ordinary kid and yet, he gives off some kind of energy. Paige tells her he has no idea what she's talking about and asks for his phone. Then, she grabs him by the wrist and drags him with her. At Gangnam Station, the girl is taking Paige to meet Seon. Paige warns her that Seon is scary and tells her what would happen if she pissed him off. To this, she replies that she's looking forward to it. When the elevator door opens, Seon is standing with a surprised look on his face. Before Paige can explain who the girl is to Seon, she spin kicks him and thrashes him around. Paige wonders how she's able to move so fast and quick. Even Seon is having a hard time fighting back. Paige wants to do something to help, so he grabs an umbrella and grips it, thinking of how to stop the girl. But she immediately kicks it, breaking it into pieces, and asks him to stay out of it or she would kill him. Seon calmly asks her what the matter is while addressing her as Ginny, and then asks what they're both doing together. Paige is stunned that they know each other. She asks Seon if he gave Paige primal panacea. She also tells him not to lie to her as she read the texts on Paige's phone. She then angrily says that they were supposed to be for Seon. Seon tells Ginny that he would tell her whatever she wanted to know later because she was making his guest uncomfortable. Ginny gives Paige a glare before turning around to leave. Paige stops her and meekly asks for his phone back, which she tosses to him. After she leaves, Seon apologizes to him for the chaos. Paige tells him that Ginny seemed upset and asks if he should come back another time. Seon tells him it's okay and that it had nothing to do with him. Seon then invites him inside and comments on how he's gotten stronger than the last time he saw him. Paige says that he's been following everything he told him to. Paige then asks Seon to tell him about Murim warriors. Seon apologizes and says that he's not supposed to reveal info about the Murim to civilians. Paige asks why he's helping him if he's just a civilian. Paige realizes that Seon is not allowed to help him and so thanks him for everything he's done. Paige says that he didn't want Seon to fight with his girlfriend because of him, and says that he doesn't want to create trouble for him. Meanwhile, Ginny is outside, hearing the conversation, and then tapping the phone. Paige says that if it's going to create issues for Seon, he wouldn't contact him for help anymore. Seon pauses before saying that the Murim is a world with people with different values from the normal world. Murim warriors are real but they stay hidden and live by their own rules. Paige asks why they stay hidden and Seon says it's because their rules aren't acceptable to ordinary people. It's a society where violence and murder are justified and a part of daily life. Seon concludes by saying that it's why it's better for ordinary people to stay away from the Murim. Paige feels terrified upon hearing this. Then Seon says that it's time for the treatment. Hage tells him he's not even sick, to which Seon says that he's not sick according to modern medicine, but when he does the treatment, he would realize how sick he's been. Seon asks Hage to take deep breaths while he places his palms flat against his back. Hage feels like a warm wave is passing through him and makes him feel calm. Then, Hage hears and feels something. He opens his eyes, realizing that he fell asleep, and sees a man tying a chain around his neck. Hage looks around to see there are other masked men in the room and Ginny. She tells them that Hage was just in the process of restorative breathing. She also asks them how they can call themselves Murim warriors. The man tells her to get out of the way or he would break Hage's neck. Hage is confused but remembers what Seon had told him about the Murim being a place for murder and violence. Hage fidgets around and tries to move. The man warns him not to, but Hage, using all his strength, breaks the chain in half and says that he wouldn't let them kill him. Hage is surprised that he has the power to break a metal chain. He doesn't know what's happening but knows that he has to get out of the place, so he runs away. The men try to catch up to him but Hage dodges them easily without even looking back at them. Hage wonders how he managed to do so. Then, just when he thinks he can't dodge them anymore, Ginny comes to the rescue and beats up the men. After she's done thrashing them around, Hage is stunned that she took out the guys all by herself, in the blink of an eye. Lifting one of the guys' face with her foot, she asks who they are. Hage stops her and tells that they should call the police first. She replies that it's a Murim matter and the Murim and the normal world aren't supposed to meddle in each other's business. The guy mockingly asks Ginny if the Seonu clan has become so weak that they need to rely on the police. Then they say that they planned this as they knew that the head of the clan would be away but didn't expect to see Ginny and Hage here. He then says that the head of the Seonu clan would be dead soon. Stepping on him, Ginny asks if Seon is in danger. Hage then hears footsteps coming up the stairs and informs Ginny. The man then says that Hage is right and that they came here to assess the situation and if something happened to them, the rest of their group would come for them. Before he can continue, Ginny knocks him out cold. She says that she's heard enough and that she would find who they are by herself. Then, they both notice that their phones aren't working. Ginny tells Hage to get dressed because they have to get out of there. Grabbing a helmet, he follows Ginny. A huge swarm of people enter the room and see that the men are unconscious. A man orders the rest of the group to find out if it was the Seonu clan that did this and asks them to not let them leave the building. Then, they look down to see an escape ladder. Hage and Ginny are going down the ladder and see that their phone still isn't working. They realize that they must have shut down all nearby transmitters. Hage asks her what's going on and she says she doesn't know either. She was just waiting for Hage to wake up because Seon told her to take Hage home. As they scramble to find signal on their phones, Ginny tells Hage to note down a number which he could call in case Ginny wasn't available to help. She then tells Hage that she would get the bike ready and jumps over the staircase railing. As he makes his way down the stairs to join her, Hage thinks about how he feels strange after waking up. It's as if he has powers. He wonders if he can do what Ginny did as well, and before he can even try, Ginny yells at him to come down. When he reaches Ginny, Hage finds her surrounded by a group of people. At first, Hage is worried for her but then realizes that she's thrashing the entire group of people with ease. When she's done, she tries to threaten them further by asking if she should kill them, when suddenly, a knife appears in front of her, and a voice asking who she would kill. Hage sees the man behind her and is frightened out of his wits. Hage wants to help Ginny but thinks that they're all Murim warriors and they would crush him immediately if he tried anything. Suddenly, he hears voices coming down the stairs. Seeing that there's people coming, he gets out of there and tries to find a hiding place. Instead, he finds a fire alarm and turns it on. The bell rings and the group of men are startled. The man holding the knife to Ginny's neck asks her not to move a muscle. Hiding behind the cars is Hage, thinking that he should have just minded his own business as he could get himself killed. Hage realizes that Ginny is capable enough to fight by herself and decides to distract the man for a moment. Hage is about to throw the helmet at him but the guy notices it and asks him who he is. Thinking that he is screwed, Hage throws the helmet anyway and runs away. The man starts to say that the helmet won't hit anything, but is cut off by the helmet smacking him in the face, sending him flying. He then says to Hage that he sees that he has some Kai in him. Ginny attacks the guy while Hage wonders how he got all this incredible strength. Ginny then shows up on a bike and asks Hage to hop on. Hage holds onto her and they race out of the place. Ginny is driving so fast that Hage asks her to slow down. She tells him that there's no time to waste as that guy is Mungi Ma, the Dark North Star. Hage asks her what that is and she says that he works for the guy that Seon is meeting today. Hage realizes that the guy was right when he said that Seon was in danger. When she's sure she lost them, Ginny stops the bike and calls Seon to see where he is. Seon sees the call and asks to be excused just as some men ask him if he is the head of the Seonu clan. They say they would take him to where their boss is waiting, and then asks him if they could hold on to his phone while he is with the boss. Seeing that Seon isn't answering, Hage tells Jinny to call someone else from Seonu clan to figure out where he is. Jinny says that nobody would know as Seon decided to keep this meeting a secret from the clan. She then tells Hage to not worry and take a taxi home. Hage says that he wants to help, but Jinny adamantly says that Seon told her to not get Hage involved in Muram matters. She then thanks Hage for helping her in the parking lot and also says that it was better than what most Muram warriors could have done. Asking him to stay away from the Muram from now, she zooms away on her bike. Hage thinks about how he still wants to help, but he hears a rumbling noise down the street. It's Mungi Ma and his gang. They drive past Hage and after noticing him, turn around and come towards him. Hage runs away as thinking that he's screwed. The guys ask Captain Mungi Ma why they stopped here. He tells them that he saw the kid from the parking lot. Mungi Ma walks down the alley where Hage is hiding behind a dumpster in fear. Mungi Ma walks around trying to find him, while Hage hides, covering his mouth, hoping that he doesn't see him. Mungi Ma spots Hage and Hage is sure that he is gonna die. The guys on the bikes ask Mungi Ma if he spotted anyone. To Hage's shock, Mungi Ma says that there's nothing here and that he must have been mistaken and tells them that they should leave this place. Then the guys ask him what to do about Jinny. He tells them that it's alright because the Seonu clan won't do anything foolish. Hage overhears this conversation and then Mungi Ma says that the clan may not be pleased to find out that their leader is in the Neon building in Yeoksum. After the men leave, Hage cannot believe what just happened. He wonders why Mungi pretended not to see him and even told him where Seon is. Hage thinks that maybe he is on Seon's side. Pulling out his phone, Hage decides to call the number Jinny gave him, but then wonders if the whole thing is a trap as it seems way too easy. Yeoksum is close by and Hage reaches the Neon building. Hage hopes that he doesn't regret sticking his nose in other people's business, but since this involves Seon, he wants to go check it out. The door seems to be locked and a guard asks Hage what he's doing. Hage tells him he's looking for someone. He gives the guard a description of Seon by mentioning his height and hair. The man then asks if he was looking for Seon Lee. Hage asks him how he knew and the man asks Hage to come with him. He leads Hage inside and grabs him by the neck and slams him against the wall. The guard asks him who he is and who told him about this place. Hage asks him what he's doing and the guard replies that he knows exactly what's going on. He squeezes tighter and asks Hage for an answer. Hage grabs his wrist and cracks it, leaving the man hurting. Hage then asks the guard if he's okay and says that he didn't mean to do it. The man wonders out loudly if Hage is a civilian or not. Hearing this, Hage realizes that he might be a Muram warrior and runs away from him. Running out of the building, he knows that Seon is definitely here and decides to let the Seonu clan know. Just as he's about to make the call, his phone explodes. He stops running and a man tells him that it was a good idea for him to stop because if he didn't, the next one would have been aimed at his head. Hage asks him who he is and the man says that he wants to know who Hage is as well and gives him a shove, making him fall down on his face. The man asks Hage if he doesn't know how to break a fall. The men talk amongst themselves. One of them asks if Hage is a civilian and another says that he just broke Mr. Gu's arm so he might not be. Hage demands to know why they're doing this to him and who they are. The man steps on his face, saying that if he's going to pretend being a civilian, he better learn to hide his Kai. Hage asks what Kai is and the man asks him to cut the bullshit. Hage then asks him if Seon is there and if he's okay. The man kicks his face, saying that he would be the one asking questions. The man then yanks Hage's injured face and asks him to tell him what he's doing here. Hage warns them that if anything happens to Seon, they would be sorry. Suddenly, they hear a voice saying that's enough. They turn around to see Seon, who asks them to leave Hage alone. The man lets go of Hage and Seon asks him if he's okay. Hage says nothing and exchanges glances with Seon until the man tells Seon that he should have been waiting inside for his boss. Seon then asks them what they did to his companion. The man says that they didn't know Hage was his companion. He also says that he thought it was gonna be a private meeting with the boss and he didn't expect someone to come with him. Seon then asks him if he's saying that it's his fault. The man stammers to answer and Seon says that since it's his fault, he's canceling the meeting. He tells Hage to get up so they could leave and the man screams at him and says that he can't leave as the boss would be here and Seon is the one who called the meeting. He also asks Seon if he's not afraid of the consequences. Seon asks him back the same question. He asks him if he's not scared of the consequences of doing this to his companion. Then the man tells Seon that he knows Seon used to be a hot shot but now he's just washed up and no match for his boss. More men walk toward them and Hage and Seon are both surrounded. The man then tells Seon to behave himself and go back inside. Seon tells them that he came for a meeting and not to be threatened. but since they insist on fighting him, he has no intention of backing down. Just then, a man with a girl beside him walks towards them, and everyone in the vicinity clasps their hands and bows their heads out of respect for him. Hage thinks that the old man must be the dangerous guy who Seon came to meet. The boss asks them what's going on here. The man explains that Seon was leaving, so they all tried to stop him. Hage thinks how he looks like a weak old man, and the boss asks them who the boy is, referring to Hage. They tell him he's Seon's companion. The boss then says that it's strange because he senses the energy of a Murim warrior in him, and yet he looks like a civilian. Then he asks if a civilian has been exposed to Murim power, because that is strictly forbidden. The man then asks Hage if he could see him for a minute. He holds out his hand and asks Hage to come with him as he wants to see something. He's immediately thrown around by Seon and knocked out. Everyone around them asks him why he did that and if he forgot where he is. The boss asks them all to stop and asks Seon why he did that. He glares at Seon and asks if he's trying to get himself killed. All of a sudden, Hage is trembling and unable to move. Seon tells the boss that he was invited here as a guest, and the man he just knocked out disrespected him and abused his companion. He also asks the boss why he's trying to find ridiculous reasons to fault him. Seon continues to say that he didn't bring anyone from the Seonu clan as requested by him, and yet he came here with all these people. He asks the boss if he was planning to kidnap him. The boss does not reply, so Seon walks away saying that this was not the kind of meeting he was expecting. He then whispers to Hage and asks him to run when the fighting begins. He also says that he would do whatever he can to distract them until Hage runs away. Hage wonders how Seon is going to fight all of them alone. The boss then apologizes to Seon and says that there's been a misunderstanding. He tells his men that he would investigate this matter further and tells them all to leave for now. He then asks Seon and Hage to follow him and says that he wants to have an honest discussion. Seon apologizes, saying that it's not the right time for a meeting, and says that he would come another time. The girl beside the boss tells them to follow them obediently. Seon asks her what if he didn't want to. She says that she would make him and attacks him. Seon fights back and Hage is in awe at what he's seeing. Suddenly, Hage's heart starts beating fast, but his thoughts are interrupted by the boss, who comments that Seon holds up well even against an advanced master. It's at that moment that Hage remembers that Seon asked him to run when he fights. When he's about to do so, the boss tells him to show his hand. Without a choice, Hage holds out his hand and the boss asks him what sect he's from. Hage tells him that he's not a member of any sect. The boss says that that's what he thought and proceeds to place his hand on Hage's chest and says that he would remove the energy from him while Hage screams. Meanwhile, Seon is still fighting the girl when he sees what's going on below. He asks the boss what he's doing and the girl says that that's what she would like to ask him too. After saying this, she lands another blow on Seon and they both battle it out while the boss drags Hage away. Seon sends the girls crashing down and landing on his feet, asks the boss to get his hands off Hage, with smoke bellowing around him. Taking in the scenario, the boss says that he knew Seon was hiding his power. After watching Seon in action, the chairman says to him that his power is the reason why he's acting so arrogant. Seon asks him if he's doing this because he disobeyed him. The chairman then tells him that Hage has powers that no civilian should have. He also emphasizes that Seon should know this as an elder of the Murim. Seon doesn't respond and asks the chairman to let Hage go. If he did so, Seon would accept his invitation. Hage screams at Seon to not do that as the chairman would kill him if he went with him. He rushes forward, but the chairman grabs him in a chokehold, squeezing Hage's neck. The chairman demands to know how he can lie to him after stealing the Murim's powers. Hage tells him he can't be fooled as he heard his henchman talking earlier. The chairman angrily asks him what he heard. But before Hage even has the chance to reply, the chairman gets attacked with a punch from Seon. Hage watches them fight in shock. The chairman then manages to land a kick on Seon. Hage tries to call out to Seon but is unable to do as his voice is gone. He then realizes that he isn't able to move either. The chairman asks Seon if he really thought he could surprise him with an attack. Seon asks the chairman what he did to Hage. He says he simply silenced him for a moment by squeezing his paralysis and mute channels. Seon asks why he won't let Hage talk. Seon wants to know what he's trying to cover up. The chairman asks Seon to not believe what Hage said about him wanting to kill Seon. To this, Seon says that he trusts Hage more than he trusts him. Furiously, the chairman says Seon is blinded by confidence as he has some Kai in him. He then says he would give him a chance to fight him. He challenges Seon to beat him and release Hage's mute channel. Hearing this, Hage is sure that there's no way the old man can beat Seon as Seon is stronger. Seon steps towards the chairman to attack him but is stopped with a whack from his fist. He comments that Seon has a good Kai sense. Seon fights back, landing a series of equally hard punches. The chairman asks if that was the Seonu clan's cloudburst attack, but the chairman is unharmed and asks Seon if he really thought such an attack would work against him. Lunging forward, Seon raises his fists and aims to beat up the chairman yet again. Hage watches this in horror as cars are thrown around and shattered. Watching the intense fight, Hage can't believe what's happening. He can't seem to understand why even though Seon is attacking with terrifying power, the old man seems completely unfazed. To Hage, it doesn't even look like he's fighting him, it looks like he's toying with Seon. The chairman punches Seon again, sending him flying. Out of anger, Seon asks if he wants to be killed. Director Lee asks Seon how he could behave like this in the presence of the chairman. She gets closer to Seon in an attempt to fight, and Hage is worried that even taking on one person is too difficult for Seon, and now there's two people. The chairman tells Lee that Seon is still young and they'd have to teach him what he needs to know little by little. Seon just stares without saying a thing, and the boss asks him why he stopped. He swiftly walks towards Seon and places his fist right in front of his face and asks Seon if he's scared. Hage is surprised at how quickly the chairman moved towards Seon. It's called Phantom Feet, and to those who haven't seen it before, the chairman's foot technique would look like magic. Removing his fist, the chairman says that Seon's powers are just a mere illusion compared to his, and then says that judging by the way he fought Director Lee, it appears that he only uses Seonu clan martial arts techniques. He also compliments that the Seonu clan's martial arts style is remarkable, as the main focus of the Seonu clan is agility. But the issue is the energy flowing through Seon, because it was created using the Hyunwon clan's Kai technique. The Hyunwon clan's martial arts style prioritizes tranquility above all. The techniques would appear smooth and slow, but within that there's tremendous power, he says while demonstrating by exploding something nearby. He further says that martial arts styles are a combination of Kai techniques and martial arts techniques. So even if one had the greatest Kai technique or martial arts style in the world, their martial arts style wouldn't be complete unless there's a balance between these elements. This is why most martial arts sects learn both Kai techniques and martial arts techniques at the same time. Seon doesn't say anything to this, and Hage doesn't understand what's going on. He thought the chairman was going to kill Seon, but instead he's explaining all this to him. The chairman then concludes by saying that if Seon wanted to learn proper martial arts style, he should stop being stubborn and become his disciple. Seon lets him know he's already well aware of that. He knows that his Kai doesn't match the Seonu clan's martial arts techniques. The chairman asks him why he keeps using the same techniques if he already knows that. To this, Seon replies that it's because he is the head of the Seonu clan, and that he refuses to abandon the Seonu clan's techniques now and in the future. The chairman calls him foolish after hearing his reply. Seon tells him he appreciates his advice. Unexpectedly, Seon quickly moves to where Hage is and releases his pressure points. It hurts Hage at first, but then he feels relieved that he can move finally. Seon tells the chairman that Phantom Feet is the most basic foot technique, and until he'd used it now, he'd forgotten that he'd even learnt it. Seon then asks Hage to finish saying what he was going to earlier. So Hage says that while Seon was gone, the chairman's henchmen broke into his apartment and tried to kill him. Seon asks how he knows they're his men. Hage says Jinny told him so. Hage also says that someone named Mungama, who works for the chairman, was there and that he even held a knife to Jinny's throat. Asking if this is true, Seon asks the chairman to explain himself. The chairman says this is nonsense. He says Hage first acquired Miram power despite being a civilian, and now he's slandering him with ridiculous accusations. Hage asks what does him being a civilian have to do with this. The chairman says that the Miram made an unbreakable agreement with the world that they would be invisible for the sake of mutual coexistence, and anyone who breaks this rule has committed a sin worthy of death. Hage looks at Seon, thinking that even though he knew what Seon did for him was special, he didn't know it was such a big deal. He wonders why Seon would risk so much just to help him. The chairman asks again why Hage has Miram energy. He then says that if Seon, the head of the clan, is the one that gave him power, the whole clan would be held responsible. Hage thinks that he has to do something to help the situation. He tells them he has a question. He asks them if the problem here is that he's a civilian. The chairman says of course. So Hage says that he could become a Miram warrior too, and that would solve everything. Seon and the chairman are taken aback. The chairman shouts that he cannot just choose to become a Miram warrior. In order to be a Miram warrior, he would have to be from a family of Miram warriors or join martial arts at a young age. He finishes by saying it's impossible for one to become a Miram at his age. Seon then says that he became a Miram warrior at Hage's age too, so there's no reason why he couldn't be a Miram warrior as well. The chairman calls it absurd. Seon says that Hage is now part of the Seonu clan. He then asks the chairman if he really sent his men to kill them. He pauses for a while and says nothing before denying the accusations and calling them baseless. Seon then says that he saw the chairman's men beating up Hage. If they had nothing to hide, why would they beat up someone who came to see Seon? The chairman tries to say that Seon is mistaken, and Seon says that if he wanted to talk, he'd have to talk to his dead body. Seon stands in front of the chairman in fury. Director Lee goes up to the chairman and whispers to him that she tried contacting the Dark North Star, but was unable to reach him. She also says that the Seonu clan is currently searching the city following the Stormy Wave sect. The chairman grits his teeth in anger. Hage flinches upon seeing this. He wonders how this old man can give off such a scary vibe by just standing there. He hopes he doesn't use the phantom feet technique to move quickly to them and attack them again. Then the chairman lets out a sigh, and Hage notices that the scary aura around him disappeared all of a sudden. He orders Lee to contact the Red Southern Star and tell him to come pick up their leader. She informs that she messaged him, and the chairman starts walking towards Hage and Seon. He asks Hage what his name is. He says it's Hage Kang. The chairman then says he'd see how long he lasts in the Murim and walks away from them. While Hage wonders if it was a threat, Seon says to the chairman that Eternal Kai is what Ryong is after. The chairman asks if that's why Seon came here tonight, because he wanted to find that out. He then says that with all the rumors about Ryong going around nowadays, he can see why Seon wanted to know what he's up to. Seon now asks if he was the one that arranged the visit from the Murim Special Affairs Bureau. The chairman says one of the greatest sects in the Murim hadn't been active for months, and their leader had a debilitating injury, so anyone would have been curious to know what was going on. Continuing to walk away, he finishes by saying that this wasn't the meeting he had in mind, but it's enough for him to know that Seon is alive and well. Seon then asks him what Eternal Kai is. The chairman asks him why he's still talking after saying that he was done talking to him. He also tells Seon to not even think about going after Ryong, as he wouldn't stand a chance against him in his current state. All of a sudden, he gets blurry and disappears into thin air. Hage thinks that Murim warriors are like sorcerers. He then asks Seon if he's okay. Seon responds by grabbing his t-shirt and asking how the hell he knew he was here. Hage explains that after Jinny left, he heard Mungama mention this place. Seon scolds him by saying that it was dangerous to show up here. Hage apologizes and says that Seon has done so much for him, so he tried to look out for him too. Letting go of Hage, Seon says that he only helped because he felt sorry for him briefly. He then says that he noticed Hage has the same Kai channel disorder that he used to have. He explains that people with Kai channel disorder are naturally weak, and working out wouldn't help, but it could kill. But it could be cured using the Murim's pills and Kai techniques. Seon then says that he made a foolish mistake, as he didn't know Hage would have so much Kai left after the treatment. Hage tells him that he has no idea what any of this means, but he's all better now because of him, so that's a good thing. Seon yells, asking how it's a good thing. He reminds Hage that he just announced that he'd become a Murim warrior in front of everyone. He also says that he can't run away now and has to join the Murim. All he wanted was to cure his Kai disorder. He says to Hage that he didn't want to drag him into the shitty Murim world. Hage says that Seon need not worry about him becoming a Murim warrior, as he chose this himself. If something happened to him, it'd be his own fault. Seon argues that he has no idea what the Murim is like. Hage replies that he knows Seon is worried, but he's also the reason that he's still alive. He then says he doesn't care what the Murim world is like. He just wants to be in the same world as Seon because he likes him. Seon is speechless, and Hage points out that if the Murim was as bad as he says it is, it still wouldn't be around. It seems to be doing fine in its own little corner of the world. Hage then says that there must be a lot of people who like the Murim as well. Hearing this, Seon is reminded of his past when an older man told Seon that he likes this place. He'd told Seon that this place may seem barbaric to someone like him who was born as a civilian, but to those born and raised as Murim warriors, the Murim is home. He'd hoped that Seon would see the Murim as his home too someday. Seon tells Hage he's right because there are people who like the Murim. Watching them both from the rooftop of a building is a man. He says he's glad Seon's alive. Hage looks up and asks who he is. Seon thanks him for getting here quickly. He says he wouldn't want Seon to get hurt because he was late, leaving Hage confused as ever. Hage asks the guy if he's from the Seonu clan too. When asked who he is, Hage says that he's a friend who's hoping to join the clan soon. Suddenly, they hear cars vroom around them. They come to a screeching halt in front of them. Men dressed in suits get out of them and march towards them. Hage freaks out, thinking that the people they saw before are back. Seon then says it's time for him to introduce Hage. All the men clasp their hands and bow their heads. Seon says that this is Hage's new family, the Seonu clan. Later, Seon takes Hage to the elders, Min and Kim, the main elders of the Seonu clan. He asks them to welcome Hage to the clan. Min says that it doesn't seem like the right place to discuss this, so he asks Seon if they can go inside. Hage feels like they don't like him very much and regrets coming to this place. Seon asks Jenny to take Hage to the library and treat his wounds. She angrily asks why she has to be the one to do it. Hage thinks Jenny definitely doesn't like him. Seon says please and says they can't leave a guest by himself. Without a choice, Jenny agrees. She yells at Hage to go with her. While she's fixing up his wounds, Hage asks her if she lives here too. He then asks if Seon is from a rich family because his house is huge. She plasters a bandage on his forehead while saying that he shouldn't act like he knows them. She says she kept quiet about this on purpose in case others found out Seon gave out the primal panacea. Hage asks if the primal panacea is really that valuable. Jenny asks how many times she's supposed to tell him that it's valuable. She then says that now that he's bandaged up, it would be his turn to talk. Jenny wants to know how Hage ended up here with Seon. Seon is having a discussion with the elders and others. He apologizes to them for giving away one of the clan's treasures without asking. Min says that as much as it bothers him, there's other things he finds more troubling. Like how it was irresponsible of Seon to receive treatment from Dr. Demon Hand and meet with the head of the Martial Arts Alliance. Jubium says that if Seon was going to meet with such people, he should have at least consulted them. Seon just asks if they would have allowed him if he'd consulted them. Seon says that he asked them to bring Dr. Demon Hand when he was lying in bed sick. He talks about how each time they refuses his requests because the clan wasn't on good terms with the doctor. Seon continues to say that people were circulating rumors that the Seonu clan was finished because Seon was on his deathbed while he was recovering. He asks him if he was just supposed to lie in bed and do nothing. The guy notices how Seon's attitude has changed completely as he used to be meek and timid. Min asks him to calm down and says that Gumanryong has appeared in the Murim again, and that's not good for many reasons. It could create negative ripples among other sects and within the Seonu clan. Seon asks Min if he's worried what they might think or if he doubts his hatred towards Gumanryong. Everyone in the room is stunned after hearing this. Min quickly says that he's just stating the current situation. He says one of Seonu clan's prized possessions landed in the hands of a civilian boy and asks how Seon expects them to accept him as a member of their clan all of a sudden. He then says that he understands why Seon wants to help Hage but is doubtful whether Seon would be able to face Gumanryong in his current state. Seon says that helping Hage is a personal desire of his but he's well aware of his responsibilities as the head of the clan. He then says that if Min strongly opposed the idea, he would destroy Hage's energy center and take his power for himself. To this, Min asks if this is why Seon made Wim wait in a different room. After hearing Hage explain his side of the story, Jinny says Mungi Ma and Seon know each other. Hage realizes this is why it was easy to escape from him. She then asks why Hage didn't call the clan if he knew where Seon was. Hage says it all seemed like a trap. He asks Jinny why Mungama made such a big fuss if he was going to tell them where Seon was anyway. Jinny says it's probably because he didn't want the head of the association to find out. Hage asks if it was the same guy Seon met. Jinny replies that he's the Seonu clan's arch-enemy and Mungama works for him. Jinny then lets Hage know that they're done talking and want to meet him. They enter and Hage feels the tension in the room. Min gets up, towering over Hage, sticks his hand out and welcomes Hage to their clan. Hage shakes his hand and thanks him while the rest of the room claps. Elder Kim says that it's enough for today and the clan leader needs to rest. Kim and Min get into their car and drive away. They talk about how the clan leader has changed. Min says that he's much better than before. He also says that he gave him primal panacea to recover and it's too bad that he gave it to someone else. So Kim asks him what he thinks about Hage. Min asks what he means and Kim says that he checked his pulse when he shook Hage's hand earlier, and those who have recovered from a Kai disorder are in perfect shape to learn martial arts. Min then says that depending on the number of Kai channels blocked, Kai disorder is hard to treat, but the chances of a kid like Hage making a full recovery was less than winning the lottery. Kim asks him in shock what he's trying to say. Min says that Hage won the lottery. Jinny says she'd take Hage home. Hage happily says that if she doesn't mind he'd gladly go with her. Hage is immediately held back by a guy who says if he saw Hage flirting with Jinny again, he'd be dead. Kim says to Min that Miram warriors have to train for at least 10 years to attain full recovery, but Hage has already achieved it. So he asks if the primal panacea is that powerful. Min says that it's not only because of the primal panacea, it's because the clan leader boosted the primal panacea with his own Kai. Kim says he can't believe how much Kai the leader has to be able to cure a Kai disorder in one attempt. After receiving Demon Hand's treatment, he's a completely different being altogether. Seon asks Jubium if he can have a word with him. Jubium asks the rest of them to leave. Then Seon tells him that he's experiences having his energy center shattered and it was extremely painful, but he also knew how dangerous it could be when it's not under control. Earlier, during the discussion, Jubium had suggested that if there's no place for Hage in the Murim, removing his power would be the right thing to do. Min is shocked at hearing this but says that it isn't easy for a civilian to become a Murim warrior, and it's especially difficult to become a member of the Seonu clan. He then says to Seon that if Hage poses any kind of threat to the clan, Seon should take away his power. Min says if Seon promises to do so, then he'd have no objection to letting him join the clan. Kim agrees and asks if anyone in the room objects. Everyone says they're okay with it. After this, Seon thanks them for allowing this as it wasn't an easy decision. One of the clan members tells Deeson that the leader used to be a softie but now he's helping the kid. Deeson tells him that Seon was bound to change eventually. It's the only way to make it in the Murim. He then says that he should go home and get some rest as they will be busy from now because the clan leader is back. He replies that he's already getting a headache thinking about the backlash from other clan members. When Seon is done speaking, he asks Jubium if Jinny is right about there being suspicious activity within the clan. Jubium says he's not sure but there's something bothering him. He takes out his phone and shows a picture of the chairman of Seongyi Group, Gilnam-young. He reminds Seon that he must remember him from the clan meetings he always attends. He also says that he's an outstanding martial artist and sociable, so he's well liked within the clan. But there's been rumors that he's been in contact with another sect recently. Young denied this rumor, but ever since then, it feels to Jubium like other clan members have been siding with him. Some people suspect that clan members are planning to leave the clan. Seon says that most of the clan's assets are registered in their names. Jubium says he's right and Seon asks what would happen if they all left. Jubium says the Seonu clan would go bankrupt immediately. A man comes to Gilnam-young and informs him that he just received word that the Seonu clan leader is back. He also says that he believes there would be a clan meeting soon. Yong asks everyone to pay attention and lets them know the Seonu clan leader is back and that they should all congratulate him. Yong then raises his glass to make a toast. Suddenly, he stands up, asks to be excused and leaves the room. He goes up to a man sitting on a chair and tells him that he shouldn't show up unannounced like this because it puts him in an awkward position. Picking up a cup, the chairman says he just wanted to enjoy some tea with a good view. He tells Kang about how the clan leader seems to be quite healthy. They then wonder why he was inactive for so long. Kang asks if he has any more information about Seon regarding his potential weaknesses. The chairman says that Kang is obvious because it's evident that he just seeks the chairman's help because he's after Seon's fortune. Young tells the chairman that he would benefit tremendously too if the Seonu clan fell apart. The chairman says to Young that he doesn't like people like him because he can never know what they're thinking. Young says it's a coincidence because he can't stand the chairman either for the exact same reason. Setting the cup down, the chairman says he would tell him something about the clan leader. He asks Young to look into a boy named Hage Kang and says he'd be quite amused by what he finds. Jinny drops Hage off at his place. Hage then asks her what he's supposed to do tomorrow and whether he should go see Seon. She tells him to just stay at home because his new teacher would come to pick him up. Hage is surprised because he thought Seon would be the one to teach him, so Jinny says that Seon doesn't have the time for that. Because it's his first time being back in a long while, Seon would be extremely busy. Hage then asks her if there's any problems within the Seonu clan. Jinny asks Hage to not worry about that and just worry about himself. Hage asks her what she means and she explains that Hage still has some energy left from when Seon cured his Kai disorder, so he could accidentally use too much power if he wasn't careful. But the energy would disappear in a few days, so he'd just have to be careful until then. Hage flops onto his bed and thinks what an awesome day it's been. Before this morning, he had no idea such a world existed. For some reason, he couldn't stop thinking about that fight. He wonders if he'd be as strong as Seon if he learnt martial arts from the Seonu clan. The next morning, Hage wakes up, feeling well rested. He wonders when Jinny is going to call him when he suddenly realizes that he doesn't have a phone. So there's no way for Seonu clan to contact him. Just then, the doorbell rings and two men are at the door. They ask if Hage-kun is here. Hage asks them if they're from Seonu clan. They ask him how he knew and Hage says he could sense their Murim warriors. Hage immediately says that they must be here to pick him and asks them to give him a minute to get ready. In a while, they're driving Hage in a car wondering why he looked like he was waiting for them. They take Hage to a warehouse and Hage asks them if this is where he'd be learning. One of the men asks what the hell he's talking about as they just brought him here to ask questions. Hage asks if he's been kidnapped. The men say that he's been invited, not kidnapped. Il-nam-young shows up and asks Hage if they can talk for a minute. Hage asks Chairman Young who he is. Young tells him that he is the one that invited him. He asks Hage to show him his hand. Hage refuses to do so and says he is aware that he's trying to find out something. Young chuckles at this and calls him clever. Young then reaches into his jacket and pulls out a stack of money. He hands it to Hage, who asks what this is. Young says it is allowance. Young comments that it's a lot of money for a high schooler. He asks Hage to tell him what he knows about the Seonu clan leader as a way of thanking him for the money. Young also questions how Hage turned from being an ordinary civilian to a member of the Seonu clan so quickly. Hage questions Young back about who he is and if he is part of the Seonu clan too. Young says it does not matter and what's important is how lucky Hage is because of all the money he made thanks to Seon. Hage thinks how he owes everything to Seon and this is why he could never betray him. Saying this, he gives the money back to Young. Young asks Hage if he's aware the current leader of the clan is only the acting head. Hage is surprised upon hearing this and Young says that the leader of the Seonu clan is actually someone else and the current head is only filling for him temporarily. He says the Seonu clan is one of the most powerful clans in the Murim. They're even wealthier than most conglomerates and yet, the current leader is an 18-year-old who used to be a civilian. Young tells Hage that this means Seon won't live long. And this is what happened with the previous leaders of the clan too. Young now asks Hage to think carefully whether he wants to side with a stand-in leader. Hage replies that, that's why something seemed off about Seon. Young is confused and Hage apologizes and says he's slow to understand this kind of stuff. He then asks Young to keep the money and let him go. Young says he would explain in a way Hage would understand. A man shows up with a briefcase of money and Young asks if Hage understands now. He tells Hage that his mother would be pleased as she works hard as a truck driver to support Hage. Young tries to tempt Hage by saying she could buy a new truck or find a new job which isn't so dangerous with the money. Hage then asks Young if he has died before. He tells Young that he has and Seon brought him back to life. He says he owes Seon his life and so, he can't trade that for any amount of money. Hage tells him to forget about bribing him before walking away. So Young says he is going to have to change tactics. Before Hage realizes he's been attacked. He flies from the impact and slams onto the ground. Placing his staff on his neck, Young has Hage pinned to the ground and asks if he has changed his mind yet. Hage tries to get the staff off him and says that Murims are so predictable. They first try to sweet-talk him and then threaten when that does not work. Young tells Hage he would see how strong he really is and pushes the stick against Hage's neck. Hage trembles from being choked while trying to pry it off him and manages to do so after a while. Falling to his side, he gasps and coughs. Young says Hage has quite a bit of Kai in him so he'd have to use his own Kai too. Hage watches Young and thinks that something about him changed. He isn't even touching Hage, but Hage feels like he can't breathe. Young brings his staff close to Hage again and says he would ask one last time if he accepts his offer. Hage screams and says he won't and asks him to let him go. After this, Young simply asks Secretary Kim to take Hage home and leaves. Hage gets up in shock and confusion and Young tells Hage to not get too close to the clan leader unless he wanted to die. After dropping Hage off at his house, Secretary Kim asks him not to tell anyone about what happened today. If Hage did so, they'd wipe him out. He then tosses a stack of money to Hage and says it's the allowance from Chairman Young. Hage asks him to wait but Kim speeds away in the car. Hage angrily thinks that he never asked for the money. He then thinks that the money isn't bad after all. Hage wonders if something would happen to Seon. Seon is with Chairman Young. Young tells Seon to not play games with him and that he met Hage before coming here. He says how surprised he was to see the amount Kai Hage had despite being a civilian a while ago. Seon says he did use one of the clan's treasures on a civilian and made him a member of the clan. So Young tells him that the reason clan members have been loyal to the Seonu clan is because Elder Kwon was a powerful leader. He says that Seon is acting however he pleases even in the absence of Kwon. He states that he's just a stand-in leader and cannot get away with it. Jubyum says to Young that this is uncalled for but Sinon cuts him off and says Young is right as he used to think that this was just a temporary arrangement. So he'd intended to simply remain out of sight and resign when the time came. But the two elders had felt differently. They considered Seon as the true leader of the clan. And so, he had to step up his duties because they put their lives on the line to defend Seon as the clan leader. Seon concludes by saying that he refuses to back down from the responsibilities given to him, even if it destroys him. Young asks Seon if he thinks he's strong enough for the job and Seon asks Young if he would like to see it for himself. Hage walks around, looking for Seon's place. He knows this isn't his business but he is worried about Seon. He comes across a car that looks familiar to him. Suddenly, the door opens and the man shouts at Hage, saying that he just warned him about this. Hage sweats in fear until he sees Ginny drive by on her bike. Hage yells out her name, but his mouth is immediately covered by the man. Hage manages to take his hand away and crack it in the process. When the men are distracted, Hage runs towards Ginny. After stopping, she asks him what he's doing here as she had told him not to come here. Hage tells her it's not what she thinks and points behind him only to realize that the car and men have disappeared. Hage wonders where they went. When asked who he is talking about, Hage says it's the people who abducted him. He then asks Ginny if Seon is okay and Ginny asks him why he's so panicky. Hage tries to tell Ginny that nothing like this has happened to him before but is cut off by Seon, who is thrown out of a window causing the glass to shatter to pieces. Young shows up and tells him he's too slow and flips him again with his eagle staff. Seon attempts to attack Young back with a kick but lands on the ground again. With a swift kick, Young sends Seon flying. Young sends a series of attacks his way. Seon gets bashed and whacked, and when he finally comes down, his clothes are ripped but he is still standing. Young is surprised that Seon was able to handle the twin dragon combo technique. Hage and Ginny come to his side and ask if he is okay. Hage then recognizes Young and says that that's the guy. Ginny then shouts at Young and asks what he's doing. Seon tells Ginny to get back as he was the one that challenged Young. Ginny is surprised. Jubium says that the clan leader challenged Young to a duel and Young accepted. Ginny asks why they would do it at home like this. Young walks away saying he looks forward to what Seon has to say at the meeting. When he passes by Hage, Young tells him to remember his advice. Looking at his hands, Seon says the Seonu clan's techniques sure are powerful. Hage asks them who that man is and lets them know that he met Young briefly that morning. Ginny says it's Chairman Young, an important figure in the Seonu clan. Ginny feels frustrated that this was supposed to be a secret, and it's only been less than a day but Young had already found out about Hage. Jubium says it's not surprising considering the kind of influence that Young has within the clan. Ginny asks Seon what Young wanted. Seon says it was nothing much and that Young had asked him to step down as leader. Young is going back in his car, talking to two men. They ask him if he really told Seon to step down. Young says he did, and the men say it's too soon as Seon has the support of two elders of the clan. Young says Seon may have learnt some advanced martial arts, but he is still a kid who can't control his emotions. He says even the slightest challenge to his pride sends him into a fury, so the elders won't keep defending such an immature boy forever. Ginny tries to call up Young but he doesn't answer. Hage asks if she knows Young. She says her grandfather raised him but he completely changed after her grandfather passed away. Seon gets ready to train and asks Ginny to look after Hage. She asks why she should as she is busy too. Seon says please, and so Ginny can't resist and agrees to it. Hage notices this and tells her she has a soft spot for Seon, making Ginny angry. Jubium asks Seon if they should tell the elders about what happened today. Seon disagrees and says Young is after him. If he did not step up, nothing will change even with the help of the elders. He asks Jubium not to worry and says he would think of a solution. In his room, Seon sits on the floor and begins his training with visuals of him and Chairman Young. Ginny is bothered over how Seon has not left his house in the past few days. She wonders what he is doing in there. She has not been able to contact Young either. Ginny notices Hage working out behind her and yells at him, asking why he's here. Hage simply says Seon put her in charge of him. She replies that it was only for one day and he is not supposed to keep coming over to her house to train. Hage says he has no teacher yet and asks her to let him train here. She says he must be clueless and that she's worried about Seon because even the clan members don't take him seriously. She says that it is not just Young but a lot of clan members are eager to bring Seon down, and that is the reason he's been stressed recently. Hage asks her why Seon helped him as he wouldn't even consider helping someone if he was in that situation. Ginny says Seon did this because he puts people around him first. Hage asks her if that is why she likes him. She beats up Hage saying she doesn't like him. She then tells him if he's going to practice he should at least do it right by not repeating the same moves. She tells him he should be focusing more on how to use his Kai. Martial arts is a training process of accumulating Kai and gradually applying it to one's technique over time. She says it doesn't matter if he has a lot of Kai. It's useless unless he learns to apply it to his technique. While whacking the wooden dummy, she says that is why he is supposed to practice aligning his Kai with his form while doing those basic moves. To this, Hage says that martial arts is about accumulating Kai through Kai techniques and unleashing it in the form of martial arts techniques. Ginny is surprised to hear this and Hage says he heard this from the head of the alliance the other day. He tells Ginny how amazing the old man was when he stuck his hand out to explode stuff. She angrily tells him not to compliment him as he is their arch enemy. Hage then says he was pretty powerful and asks Ginny if there's anyone in the clan strong enough to fight the old man. Ginny says there used to be someone who was one of the 10 great masters like the old man. She says she would show Hage one of his techniques and proceeds to do so. She demonstrates a heaven-shaking thunder strike, making the wooden dummy break into pieces upon punching it. Paige is impressed and amazed, but Ginny says she messed it up again as it was nothing compared to how her grandfather did it. Paige tells her that it wasn't nothing because she destroyed the dummy. Ginny says if she had done it correctly, there wouldn't even be a trace of that wooden dummy left. Paige asks Ginny if she could teach him this technique too. She tells him not to try to fly before he can walk and orders Paige to train his Kai and align it with his moves, and says that maybe then Seon wouldn't worry so much. Seon gets off the phone with the elders, who say they would see him at the clan meeting. Hanging up, Seon tells Jubium that the elders must have heard about what happened with Yang. Jubium says it might not be a good idea to turn down the elders' help as Chairman Yang is extremely powerful. Seon says he's not sure what's gonna happen as Yang has many tricks up his sleeve. Yang is discussing with his men. He says that Seon turned down the elders' help as expected. They all laugh, saying how immature the clan leader is to throw away his only lifeline. Yang then says everything is going according to plan, so there's no need to wait any longer, and he'd finally settle everything at the clan meeting. Paige is exhausted after the intense training. Ginny comments that he's improved in the last few days. She asks him to head home, but Paige asks her to teach him the heaven-shaking thunder strike the next day. Hitting him, she says she would never teach him. Paige walks home feeling tired. Suddenly, someone asks him if he is headed home. Paige is shocked to see that it's none other than Chairman Yang. He says he heard Paige's been practicing with Ginny and says that he must have just finished for today. Paige asks him how he knew, and Yang says he was in the area, and some friends of Ginny told him. Yang asks Paige how his training is going, and Paige says Ginny said he's doing well. Yang then asks if he thought about his offer. Paige says he's told him several times that he is not interested. He then asks Paige if he knows there's a clan meeting today. Paige says he knew about the meeting but did not know it was today. So, Yang offers to give Paige a ride to the meeting and asks him to get in. At the meeting, Seon walks in and everyone greets him respectfully. Seon thanks them and says it has been a while. One of the clan members notices a group of people and thinks something's off about them. Yang then walks in and apologizes for being late. Ginny notices Paige walking alongside Yang and shouts at him, asking why he is with them. Paige replies he tagged along because they said there's a clan meeting. Ginny yells, saying that the clan meetings are not some kind of a playground and only important members are invited to it. Paige begins to say that Yang invited him, but he is cut off by Yang, who introduces him as the newest member of the Seonu clan. He says that just a while ago, Paige was an ordinary civilian who had no idea about the Murim's existence, but now he is a member of the distinguished Seonu clan. He asks Seon to answer how that happened. Paige accuses Yang of kidnapping him, to which Yang says that Paige was the one that accepted his invitation. Furious, Paige smacks Yang and tells him he's tired of him pushing him around. Yang's men grab Paige before he can punch him and grab him by his neck and threaten to snap it. Ginny asks them what they think they're doing. Yang talks about how irresponsible the current leader is because he gave away one of the clan's treasures, Primal Panacea, to a civilian and made him join the clan. He raises an envelope and says that there are other members of the clan who feel the same way as him and they demand the immediate resignation of the clan leader. He then says that if this demand is not met, he and the others who signed the petition would leave the clan. Ginny yells, saying that they are just using the clan leader as an excuse for money by trying to steal the clan's assets. A man asks her to shut up and stay out of this. Another clan member steps up and says he would gladly kick anyone who patronizes Ginny. Elder Kim says he and Elder Min are standing right here and warns everyone to not make him angry. Paige watches in shock, wondering how Kim has a terrifying aura all of a sudden. Yang apologizes and says he did not mean to disrespect them, but it took a great deal of courage for him and others to write the petition. Min asks to see it and questions how many people signed it. Yang says that he cannot show it to him as it's between them and the clan leader, but Seon could see the petition and only if he agrees to resign. Min says that an anonymous petition is interesting. He also says how Yang's name could be the only one in it, but the clan leader must resign if he wanted to see it. Yang says that most of the people here could have signed it. He then tells Seon it's time to decide if he wants to accept his proposal or remain in the clan in spite of everyone leaving. Seon says he would get straight down to business and walks towards Yang. He suddenly flips the table, making it explode above him. It crumbles to the ground in pieces. Taken aback, everyone watches the twin dragon combo technique. Seon tells Yang they would settle this like Murim warriors. People talk amongst themselves, wondering when the leader learnt this technique. Seon then asks elders Kim and Min for permission to fight Chairman Yang. Seon says that if he wins, he would be able to whatever he wanted to do with Yang in that list. Kim tells Min they should stop him as even the leader would not be able to defeat Yang. Min tells Kim that Seon's already made up his mind and announced his intention to duel in front of everyone. So-min asks Yang what he thinks. Yang says he'd be willing to fight Seon if he allowed it. Paige is worried he's going to see another fight like the one he saw before. After attacking Seon again, Yang tells him he's too slow. He attempts to whack him with his staff but Seon dodges it. And when Yang least expects it, Seon manages to kick Yang. Yang notes how different Seon's attacks feel now from before. Seon tells him he is not gonna hold back this time and prepares to attack. Yang says that's good because he doesn't intend to go easy on him either. Paige watches the fight, thinking something is different about Yang now. Earlier, Jubium had told Seon how in Yang's youth, people had high expectations of him and thought he would surpass Elder Kwon. But he lost his leg in a mishap and decided he would focus more on business than martial arts. But still, his Iron Thunder leg and Eagle Staff are not to be taken lightly. Jubium says that when Yang activates his prosthetic leg, he is quicker than ever. Seon remembers Jubium words as he continues to fight Yang. Jubium had also said that even more dangerous than his footwork was the Eagle Head Staff, which would come at him when he least expects it. The staff was like an extension of his arm that he used sometimes like an iron mace, sometimes like a hook and sometimes like a sword. Jubium had said Seon would have to find a way to overcome these two obstacles of the Iron Thunder Leg and the Eagle Head Staff if he wanted to beat Yang. Some men talk amongst themselves that Yang has already activated his Iron Thunder Leg and hope he ends this soon so they could go and have drinks. Suddenly, Seon manages to attack Yang. Yang notes that Seon is just buying time until he adjusts to the Iron Thunder Leg's speed so he can try to strike back when he lets his guard down. Yang thinks it's an impressive strategy for someone so young. Using his staff, he causes Seon to flip again, making him spin and flings him away. Yang then says it is time for this to end. A series of flashing lights and banging sounds are heard. Jinny screams Seon's name in worry while the men on Yang's side are glad it's over. But they soon see Seon fly out of the debris. Yang jumps up and follows him and tries to attack with the Eagle Head Staff, but Seon grabs it and kicks while taking the staff away. Paige watches Seon in amazement. Seon tells Yang that he slipped up and breaks the staff by smashing it. Seon says it's a shame he can't use his weapon anymore. He then asks Yang why he wishes to keep fighting. Yang quietly walks up to him and throws a punch at Seon, making him crash into the wall behind him. He continues to kick and beat until the wall crumbles and Seon dodges it by getting out of the way. Yang then says that the Eagle Head Staff was not even a weapon. If anything, it was preventing him from making full use of his Iron Thunder Leg. He says to Seon that it's going to get more dangerous now and asks if he still wants to continue. Jinny tries to say no, but Seon says he is really looking forward to this. So that is it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. So if you like the video, then hit that like button and leave a comment for the next part. Most important, subscribe and press the bell icon for notification. I will meet you in the new video. Till then, bye.